Welcome back to another video. It's been a while, my hair grew, it's hot outside, but it's time for another video. It's number 3 in this little series I'm trying to do. Last time we talked about microphones. One correction there. The Rode VideoMic Pro Plus with which I'm filming right now, it's on top of the camera. I made a mistake, it's not a shotgun microphone, it actually is a super cardioid microphone, which has the ideal pickup pattern for indoor dialogue. That's something I wanted to mention. It's slightly different from a shotgun microphone, which is more used for if the microphone is slightly further away and there is more ambient noise that you want to cut out, which is obviously not in a room like this. There is no ambient noise. That's that. Now, the thing for this video is I want to talk about general specs, non-camera specific, for video that you should have in mind. I mean, you're a photographer, you know stuff like shutter speed, aperture, ISO. It's very similar in video, but it's not exactly the same. So this is kind of a level 2 to level 3 video. I wrote it down, let me quickly tell you. Level 1 would be if you just film with your phone, or you just put your camera in full auto and just hit record and don't do anything, then obviously that's level 1. Level 2 is when you use maybe auto ISO, or you set your ISO, you use manual shutter speed and aperture and frame rate, and maybe just lock off the focus when you have a locked off shot. That will be level 2. Level 3 is if you are fully confident in your settings and you go full manual, you know exactly why you choose your shutter speed, what aperture you use, and what you set your ISO to, and having an idea what the picture style is. And I will talk about a little bit more about this just in a few seconds, setting your picture style. And level 4 would be customizing your picture style. Maybe use more than one camera, which I think is a lot of work and it's almost never necessary, only if you shoot for a client and it's little time. And maybe think about creative frame rates if you want to shoot B-roll for something. That's level 4 and above. So let's go back to level 2, level 3, setting your settings. So first things first, basically if you shoot video, it's like shooting JPEG with a frame rate of 24 frames, which is NTSC, that is the US standard. If I'm in Europe, maybe the European people shoot in PAL, in PEL, that would be 25 frames per second. Something for more specific videos from other YouTubers, if you want to know more about those codes, country codes and stuff like that. Let's stay with 24 frames right now because that's the general audience in the US. So let's start with setting your shutter speed. Oh yeah, right. Shooting JPEG, which also means you burn in the color, you burn in the exposure. There's not much playroom in post-processing. There is a little, but the closer you can get it in camera, the more it helps you in post-processing. So let's start off with the essentials. I usually like to shoot in auto ISO, or I just set the ISO at the last step. So frame rate. I'm sure you heard about it. Frame rate, usually they say, should be double your frame rate. A shutter speed should be double your frame rate. So in other words, if you have 24 frames per second, you want to shoot at 1/48th, which is possible on cinema cameras and on the higher level cameras, but we shoot at 1/50th. Okay, that's the general rule. Quick explanation. It gives you a nice ratio to blur in the image, because shoot a photo at a 50th of a second with a movement, then you notice then that you have a blur in the photo. Same goes for video, just that it's 24 frames in a row that have the same blur, and they say it gives you the cinematic effect. Just for your information, I'm shooting on a thousandth of a second right now. That's what they call overcranking. If you go over 1/50th of a second, it's overcranking because your frame rate is really fast. But I'm sitting still. First of all, it gives me a sharper image. And second of all, I don't blow out the windows in the background. My key light here is blowing at me like I'm sitting right next to the sun, But it doesn't look like that on camera because I'm at 1,000th of a second, just to not blow out the windows. Let me show what it looks like if I go to a 50th of a second. That's a 50th. So now the windows are blown out. So I have to go down with my key light. No problem, I have my flex light here. I just turn it down. That's so much fun. You see, would work, but now I have the blurriness in the image. You see my hand is so super blurry when I move it around, but the windows are blown out, and that just to keep the rules. I don't really, I mean, if you want to shoot a movie, you might as well be consistent with it, but let's go back to 1,000 and go back to 80% on the 1:2 panel from the Flex Generation 1. This is just the daylight version. And all of a sudden I have this more interesting look. And if I don't move too much, now if I move, you will see it jitters. Everything is sharp. That's the difference in shutter speed on video. Okay, that's all it is. You don't have to stick with the 150 just because everybody on YouTube tells you to do that. No, if you don't move a lot and you don't need the cinematic flow in the image, feel free to choose a frame rate above 1/50th of a second, and then set your ISO accordingly and your aperture. That's the next thing, aperture. If you have a lens that is a very nice autofocus, then shoot wide open, put it in autofocus and roll it. If you don't have so much reliable autofocus, no problem, just pre-focus on something, a light stand, then put your camera in manual and just don't move too much back and forth, and maybe use like f4 or f5.6, okay? And now you know why I like to use auto ISO, because it just takes care of the rest. If you have if you have a camera that doesn't perform too well with high ISOs, then you have to like play the knobs game and just twist it so you get the sweet spot of your camera. Just put it in ISO 800 and then just dial in the rest from there. Or that's something you will figure out from level 2 to level 3. Last thing I want to talk in this video, because this is quite getting long and I've mumbled around a little bit. I want to give you the maximum amount of information. The last thing is the picture style. As I mentioned before, you shoot basically JPEG. So if everybody tells you shoot flat so you have more playroom, don't do it. It's not a wise decision to shoot on a consumer grade or beginning pro level camera, even on the Sony A7 III that I'm shooting, which is a perfect camera and has great ISO performance, great video capability. Still there, I'm not shooting in S-Log because I don't need it. And if you have a very compressed image, so to say, a very flat image, and you start grading it, then it gets super artifacty. You will see it because the lower end cameras, they don't have the bit rates to support tough grading. So it's almost useless to shoot it in S-Log free. Google it if you don't know what I mean. Just Google S-Log free screenshot. You will see it's super flat. You can't see a thing on the camera screen, and then you have to bump up the contrast like crazy and you will get artifacts. So just take care that you don't lose your darks and you don't lose your highlights. Even if you lose your highlights a little bit, who cares? If the window would be blown out, you wouldn't mind, would you? You want to know the content. So if you're working for a client, it's another thing, but then you'll know what you're doing, I think. And either you avoid windows in the background or you get big sheets of neutral density foil that you put outside of the windows and cut the light that way, but that's not for this video. Yeah, so find a nice picture style. I usually like the portrait styles because they are pretty cool with the skin tones, and then lower the contrast, lower the sharpness, and that should give you a nice starting point where you don't have to do crazy things and you don't have to you will not have the need for really big bit rates. And that's the last thing I want to talk about because it's very technical. Know your frame and know your bit rates when you're starting. So if your camera has like a bit rate of 24 bits, it's very low, you won't get very high quality. So you must take care of the video in camera. I'm shooting at 100 mbit right now, which is pretty much, but it's the top end of the Sony prosumer cameras. So more would be, well, you need a lot of processing power to grade these videos and to cut those videos. If you have more than 100 Mbit, I think it's not super important to, at our level as photographers and headshot photographers, to do this. 100 is fine, 60 is okay, but with 60 you better be dialed in your picture style. And then you just do some color tweaks and maybe put on a LUT in grading. Not sure if we should talk about this very soon because it's more advanced, talking about LUTs and color work in the computer. If you're interested in something like this, let me know. If you want to know about grading or how to process these videos, I guess we have to do something about that. Let me quickly check again if I forgot something. Creative frame rates, not so important. Just imagine you're not shooting 24 frames a second, but 120 frames. Then you can double the shutter speed to 250 seconds and then slow the video down in post, and then you get very smooth, you know, when they move. So slow motion, now I got it. Okay, this is just one take. I just maybe do some jump cuts and then, yeah, that's maybe another thing. If you have a camera that's capable of 4K, it's a good thing because I'm shooting pretty wide and then I can do jump cuts, jump in like 80% and then hide the cut a little bit and give it some dynamic. I don't have to use a second camera. If you want to use a second camera, better use the same camera model. Otherwise you have to match the two cameras to make it look weird. There are very good techniques for that, but it's also pretty advanced and there is some more software involved to match cameras. And you can, of course, always use your X-Riot color checker for this. This is also very necessary if you want to do multicam stuff. On lenses, you don't have a ton of lenses. Use what you have at your disposal. I like wider stuff because it gives more texture in the background. I don't like the video just with a white background. It can be cool for very short videos, but you have to be spot on with your lighting, and I feel it's a little bit boring to shoot it completely on a blank canvas. It can be done, it can be super cool, but for a longer video, I prefer wide angle. But just play around with it. You have the lenses, you have the camera. We both know you will try every lens in your kit and see how it looks on video. I did it, so do that. I think that's it, yeah. I think at some point we should talk about lighting video, because you can Google the phrase, there is something they say, light places, not faces. I know we are used to lighting faces, but if you do video and you have something more in your frame than just you should think about how the space looks. I mean, there should be a pretty decent light on the person you're filming, but it's also important how the whole room looks. So don't use all 4 lights to light the person perfectly and then forget about the room. Also, you have to light the room, the space, use what's already there, use the windows as practicals, what they call it. So it's not making the light in the scene, but just giving some sense of the scene. And yeah, use 1 light for your subject or maybe 2, and use 2 other lights if you want to light it to get some accent lights in the room. I didn't do it for this video because it's not a lighting video, but I just wanted to touch on that. Maybe do some research and think about how you want to light your videos, because I started lighting my videos like headshots and it tended to look boring to my eye. And yeah, it's something I'm figuring out myself on the go, how to light a scene if I film something. Sorry, it's a little bit boring today, and I didn't even straighten up. It was initially, this was meant to be a test video, but I just wanted to get it done and I wanted to give this to you. If you have questions about anything I said, I know it was a lot. I hope it was a lot, because I want to squeeze this into your heads. Then leave a comment, ask a question in this thread, preferably. And I see you in the next video. Thanks for checking out this one. Bye.